Hello Planeswalkers! Welcome to another Deck Tech. Today we're looking at Atemsis, aka Magic's Exodia. Atemsis is a 4/5 flying sphinx for 3 blue, and they can be paid into and tapped to draw 2 and discard 1. And when they deal combat damage to a player, you may reveal your hand, and if you have 6 or more different mana values in your hand, that player loses the game. The reason I'm equating it to Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh, if you didn't know, is because Exodia has 5 pieces, and if you reveal all 5 from your hand, you win the game. So with this deck, we'll be going over cards in mana value order as opposed to strategies, as the basic strategy is to draw cards until you get 6 different mana values, and then swing in with Atemsis. So our spells mainly just draw cards and help us protect Atemsis. At 0 MV, we start with Ancestral Vision, which has Suspend 4 and draws us 3 cards. Endless One is an X cost that can be as big as we need it to be, and is a good defender when we need one. Lotus Bloom has Suspend 3 and can be sacked for 3 mana. Mishra's Bauble lets us check the top card of any player's library and then draw 1 at the next upkeep. Spellbook removes your hand limit, a must-have effect. Stonecoil Serpent is another X-cost creature that can protect us. Lastly, Urza's Bauble can be sacked to look at a random card in an opponent's hand, then draw 1 at the next upkeep. Moving on to 1 mana value, Dispel counters an instant, Gitaxian Probe lets us look at someone's hand and then draw 1, and Library of Lang removes your hand limit and lets you discard cards on the top of your deck if you're ever made to discard. Manifold Key can make Atemsis unblockable, Mental Misstep counters any spell with a mana value of 1, Mind's Aglow lets you and your opponents pay however much mana you want, then everyone draws that many cards. Ponder has you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put them back in any order, shuffle if you want to, and then draw 1. Serum Visions draws you 1 and lets you scry 2. Soul Ring needs no introduction. Soul Guide Lantern exiles a card from a grave on entry and can be sacrificed to either exile all opponents' graveyards or draw you a card. This card can really screw over graveyard-heavy decks. Finally, Visions of Beyond draws you a card, or 3 if any graveyard has 20 or more cards in it. Kicking off 2 MV spells is Arcane Signet, followed by Armillary Sphere, which can search us up 2 basics. Azor's Gateway lets you draw a card and then exile 1 from your hand, then if there are 5 or more different mana values among cards exiled with Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, untap it, and flip it into Sanctum of the Sun, which taps for mana equal to your life total. Censor counters a spell unless the controller pays 1, and you can also cycle it. Counterspell. That's it. Departed Deck Hand can make Atemsis unblockable except by spirits. Finale of Revelation costs X blue, and that really looks like ooh in the Google Doc. I'm going to forget about that right now. And draws us X cards, and if X is 10 or more, you shuffle your grave into your deck, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and lose your hand limit for the rest of the game. Afterwards, you exile it. Folio of Fancies removes everyone's hand limit and can be tapped to have everyone draw cards. You can also tap it to mill your opponents for the number of cards in each of their hands, but you wouldn't do that unless you're a monster, right? Howling Mine lets everyone draw an extra card each turn, and Kami of the Crescent Moon does the same. Key to the City can be tapped to have you discard a card and make Atemsis unblockable. You can pay 2 when it untaps to draw. Maddening Cacophony mills each opponent for 8, unless you kick it, and then it mills them for half of their decks. I take back what I said earlier, I'm the monster. Thought Vessel removes our hand limit. For 3s, we start with Cloud Key, which has you choose a spell type when it enters and makes those spells 1 cheaper. Disallow counters an ability. Lab Maniac is an alternative win con, letting you win if we deck out. Propaganda makes your opponents pay 2 for each creature attacking you. Psychic Corrosion mills each opponent for 2 for every card you draw, further proving that I am a hypocrite for shaming mill. Sinister Sabotage counters a spell and lets you surveil 1. That is, look at the top card of your deck and put it into your grave if you want. Stroke of Genius is an X cost that draws you X cards. Teferi's Tutelage has you draw a card, then discard when it enters, and it acts as another Psychic Corrosion. Theoretical Duplication is just one of my favorite Strixhaven cards, letting you copy your opponent's non-token creatures when they enter. Onto our 4s, Firemind Vessel taps for 2 different colors. Font of Mythos lets everyone draw 2 extra cards a turn. God Eternal Kefnet lets you reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it, and if it's an instant or sorcery, you copy it, and you can cast the copy for 2 generic mana less than the original, but only during Kefnet's ability's resolution. Hieroglyphic Illumination draws you 2 cards, or it can be cycled. Inscription of Insight lets you choose one, or all 3 abilities if it's kicked, out of bouncing 2 creatures, scrying 2 and drawing 2, and having target player make an XX token, where X is the number of cards in their hand. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, is here mainly for his Lab Maniac effect. Murmuring Mystic makes a 1/1 bird every time you cast an instant or sorcery. Reconnaissance Mission draws you a card whenever one of your creatures hits an opponent, and it can be cycled. Rewind counters a spell and is virtually free. Talran does what Murmuring Mystic does, but with 2/2 Drakes instead. Teferi's Ageless Insight doubles all of your draws, except for the first one on each of your draw steps. Lastly, Thopter Spy Network makes a 1/1 flying Thopter on your upkeeps if you have an artifact, and when an artifact creature you control hits an opponent, you draw a card. Onto our 5ers, we have Frostveil Ambush, which has a frost effect for 2 targets and can be cycled. Gilded Lotus taps for 3. Lich's Mirror can save you if you happen to deck out without Jace or Lab Maniac, since it has you shuffle your hand, grave, and board all into your deck, draw 7 new cards, and your life total becomes 20 if you would lose the game. Mystic Confluence lets you choose 3, and you can choose the same mode more than once, between countering a spell, unless its controller pays 3, bouncing a creature, or drawing 1. Psychosis Crawler's power and toughness each equal your hand size, and it gains you a life every time you draw a card. Lastly, Spell Swindle counters a spell and makes a number of treasures equal to that spell's mana value. Next up are our 6 mana value spells, including Deep Channel Mentor, which makes Atemsis unblockable. Mu Yen Ling can make Atemsis unblockable or draw you cards. Shark Typhoon is another favorite of mine, as it makes a flying shark whenever you cast a non-creature spell, and it can be cycled. Spell Twine lets you copy an instant or sorcery from your grave, and one from an opponent's grave and cast both for free, then it gets exiled. Sublime Epiphany is a big bag of tricks. Now for 7s, Nezahal removes our hand limit and draws you a card whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell. You can also discard 3 to exile Nezi and return him in the next end step. Overflowing Insight draws you 7 cards, and that does it for our spells. For our lands we have Arcane Lighthouse, Desert of the Mindful, Mystifying Maze, Opal Palace, Reliquary Tower, Rogue's Passage, Terrain Generator, and War Room. And there you have it. The rest of them are islands. I forgot to type that into my script, but the rest of the lands are basic islands. I really enjoy unique mechanics and win cons, and Atemsis really brings those to the table. It's a deck that isn't especially broken since you need both a hand of 6 different mana values and for Atemsis to get through and hit someone. And with plenty of removal flying around EDH, Atemsis isn't invulnerable. It's a relatively lower powered deck in practice, but that's fine for a casual, fun pod. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot. Thank you all, and y'all have a great day.